better than ever. And I know right now that I'm going somewhere and I need some cheddar. Oh, baby, better
Hey,
not
what's up,
go.
everyone? It's Andre Luck here with my next episode of the Sports Sales Show, where I'm going to talk about revenue operations and why that's a needed function and needed role within sports. It's a big opportunity. It's a big department, big focus for a lot of companies outside of sports, tech companies. But in the sports industry, this is more of a newer role or one that hasn't emerged yet because a lot of people are kind of taking bits and pieces of this role and fragmenting it and putting it all together. So I think as I look back on my career, this would have been a role that I would have been really excited about after my time in sales, moving over, focusing more on the systems and processes. And a lot of my consulting work, I've started doing some of that revenue operations work. So I'm going to talk about what that is, what that means, and like what that looks like for a sports sales organization. So the definition, not the technical definition, but for like a sports team, think of revenue operations as like the function that brings all your revenue generating departments together. So you got ticket sales, corporate partnerships, events, marketing, and making sure that they have the same systems, the processes, they're reading from the same data, they all share the same revenue goals because this department, whether it's one person or a couple people, they own your CRM strategy, so your customer relationship management platform, and making sure all the data is in there, your ticketing system sometimes, reporting, work with finance on forecasting and like what is, all right, here's the revenue that's coming in from all the areas and what do we project is going to come out, leads that are coming in, what's the process of working leads from start to finish and then keeping that lead on board and continue to bring them back. And then one that's real important now is just a tech stack because there's so much technology out there now, there's so many tools and systems. And what it looks like today is most departments have like a leader or department head within there who's doing bits and pieces of that. Like at other roles I could look back on, there was some revenue operations type things that I was doing because no one else did it, and I had an analytical background and I enjoyed that. But that takes you away from coaching and selling, and just think every other role that you're in, you have a full-time role, and you're already busy enough, and there's stuff that's already getting missed. So now having to put together reports and dashboards. And what gets interesting is if the sales leader and the corporate partnership leader and then the marketing leader, they're all like looking at numbers from a different perspective. When it rolls up to the president or whatever C-level person we all report up to, you got different reports. And I remember being in executive meetings and I'd have my report and then the partnership person would have their report and the marketing person would have their report, and they didn't all talk. And so like as we'd set goals, I'd have a goal that I was focused on and someone else have a different goal that they're focused on, but they didn't all align. So that's where a function, a person like revenue operations could tie all that together and own that and say, hey, here are the goals. Here's what you're going to be focused on, ticket sales. Here's what you're going to be focused on, corporate partnerships, you marketing, customer success and service, and like owning that process and putting that all together. So again, why it's needed. I talked about the fragmentation right now. There's more technology. There's so much data out there now too that a lot of people don't really know how to interpret. I think the CRO of the future, the sales leader of the future needs to be able to interpret and utilize data, utilize and leverage AI, but revenue operations would be a big support for that because it takes time to put these systems and processes in place. It seems easy, it seems simple, just spin up a dashboard or spin up a report. But you got to think about like the groundwork. What do we want to report on? Why are we reporting on that? What's the framework we want this built on? And like where all this data is pulling from different systems, like how do we make sure it's all speaking the same language and having a great relationship with your IT, your technology person to help connect all these systems and everything like that. But someone has to own the process and the framework of how we're going to track and measure our revenue. So you're not directly generating revenue like a salesperson who's out closing deals, but you're impacting it by looking at the systems and the process and the data that we have and gleaning insights from that and making recommendations on here's where our next revenue opportunity is. Again, you're not the one going to execute on that, but then you bring in the right parties to then go execute on that plan that you put together. So it eliminates everyone having their own siloed reporting. It's everyone's speaking the same language. So when it gets to the president, they could see a clean, breakdown. And this person may report up right to like a president or a COO or something like that. I think it makes more sense for like a chief revenue officer for a RevOps person to report underneath them because they're tied to revenue, and depending on what departments that chief revenue officer owns, it makes the most sense. But a lot of times right now in sports, um, it's like an analytics person that pulls data, puts together reports and dashboards. Like that's kind of like your default RevOps person, or you just don't have one. So a lot of times this just kind of goes missed, and you're just taking all these systems and processes and everyone's doing their own thing, and maybe the business is moving forward, but at some point that's going to break or that's going to crack, or you're going to want to take that next step and you don't have the infrastructure laid. So that's why I think it's not a, oh, maybe if we get to this point we'll get it. I think this is a right now thing. This is a role that should have been in organizations years ago, and some are starting to take that move, but I still see a lot that are still kind of piecemealing it together. And so one of the concerns that, as I hear RevOps people outside of sports, what they're concerned about, some are AI and how's that going to impact the role? Because if they're the ones who were putting together reports and building out dashboards and building out forecasts, and now AI can do that way quicker, I wonder about like your job security, and is AI going to eliminate RevOps roles? And I'm not you know, fully educated enough or like qualified to say it is or isn't, but I think it creates a huge opportunity because there's so much now that you could do if you leverage AI to clean up unstructured data, to pull analysis that would have taken you weeks to kind of scroll through and put together these pivot tables. Like there was a project I was doing probably a month ago and using Claude to take all these different reports, put it all together. Hey, find the similarities, find what's missing, like just really analyze the data. And I was just sitting myself, I'm like, how did I do this before? Like 10 years ago, before this was a thing, like I guess I would just like put pivot tables and do averages and, sums of all these different files or different columns and try and figure out what makes the most sense. But um, yeah, that's not efficient. And AI does a way better job of analyzing the reports and pulling out insights and things like that. So where now, if you lean into it and you leverage it, it's going to make your life a lot easier. And now, instead of having to spend so much time manually putting together these reports, you can now take action on that. And you can build systems and processes around that, and then bring that to the sales leader. Be like, hey, look at here's what the data is telling us. And like you can act in more real time. You can be more quickly. And we talked about this before. You plug in AI to all these different systems, now you don't have to prompt it to do that. It's actually pulling that for you and bringing it to you of, hey, here are deals that, the sales team's missing on, or here's our biggest 10 opportunities over the next quarter that we can go after based on what the data shows us. And now you look more insightful and you look more credible as a RevOps person and can be more prescriptive to your team to go drive revenue and bring things in. So it's really the systems, the processes, the infrastructure underneath your revenue driving process. A lot of sales leaders, they're not wired like that. They sell. They're great with customers. They're great, very energetic. They like closing deals. To have to put them behind a computer and, look and dive into processes and systems and tools and see, like, I've had a lot of leaders that I report up to that never even logged into a CRM system. And I think they probably should have, but at the end of the day, that's not where their mind is. They're like, right, we got to drive revenue, but this would be a good partner with them in that journey to guide them along the way and help them out. So one real life example I think about for sports to kind of tie this all together, think right now, so marketing, they're out generating leads. And then the sales team takes that lead and works it to an opportunity and eventually gets that to a closed sale. You have like your data and analytics team who's reporting all the numbers and the data and everything like that. You got your finance team who's looking at all the revenue that's coming in and trying to forecast so they can report up to their CEO, the board, like, hey, here's what we project and expect from a forecasting perspective. You have like a CRM person, usually typically pretty junior, who's running the CRM system, making sure all the data in the system of records there. And you got your service team who they're the ones, once they come on board, make sure that they are achieving success and expanding and growing and everything like that. All those are different departments, all fragmented, who probably don't all report up to the same people, have different, their goals different, they have different initiatives, they have different focuses. So there's nobody who's owning that process from marketing lead to they've bought and forecasting and projecting and everything like that, and who's like looking at this system like, did this work? How quickly did we get to the lead? Um, was our forecasting accurate based on what we thought we would get in the future? How do we improve this system? How do we improve this process? And a lot of people may have opinions, but no one's stopping to sit down and look at it. So that's the perfect example for someone in revenue operations to come in and take that process and own it. So all sounds great. Like this sounds ideal, should work, everything like that. I do see some challenges with it. One, it's something new. So we're very tied in sports. Like this is how we've done it. And it really takes a forward thinking leader and a very open minded leadership team to bring on new processes, systems, and innovate. Sales, revenue, marketing leaders have egos. So I could even look back as a director of ticket sales or VP of ticket sales, although I was very collaborative. I could see if someone's coming in like, hey, here's how you're going to run your lead process now and the campaigns you're going to run. I would have felt some type of way. So there has to be that level of, buy-in to this and letting this person who is an expert in systems and processes and taking all this and trusting them to guide you in the right direction. Doesn't mean it's not a dialogue and you're not just being told what to do, but you do have to unleash that a little bit so that you could focus on coaching your team, building your leaders, driving revenue opportunities, going out and meeting with your top prospects and clients. Like that is the focus of a sales leader, not campaigns, leads, things like that. But we've kind of just done it because no one else was there to do it. Um, you have to be able to say no, because very quickly this role could turn into the person that's in charge of just taking orders and like taking tickets. And all right, the marketing team needs this report, this one needs this dashboard, we need this built, and have to be able to ask questions. All right, why, what is it looking to accomplish? Not to challenge, but this could be something that maybe another leader needs help with. Or we're already working on this here, what if we did it like this, and here's where I think based on what I'm looking at might be a better path for you to go. So it takes someone who could put their foot down and have tell people no and have a real conversation with some very powerful, dynamic organizational leaders. So that's revenue operations in a nutshell, and why I think it should be something that people are teams are bringing on board and excited about, where the challenges lie. But I think the upside's there if you get the right type of people. And so what I'll talk about in the next episode is who makes a good fit for this. Is this a good role for someone who's been in sales? Or if you're looking entry level, like you want to impact revenue but maybe you don't want to be in a sales or marketing role, could this be a path that you go? So I'll talk about that next week. So each episode I talk about things that stood out. One thing that stood out to me, I got off LinkedIn for 2 weeks, and I was very loyal and dedicated to, I'm going to post every single day, just one to see if I could do it for a year, and then it turned into almost 2 years. And so I just took a break. It was actually nice to get off that, not feel that pressure every morning to have to post. And I don't know if I'll get back to posting every single day, but really thinking about the content that I post. And I never would post anything just for the sake of posting. Everything was always impactful, but identifying what the audience is that I want to target, which is probably more VPs, SVPs, C-level executives within sports, and like what are those insights I'm seeing out in the marketplace that would best impact them? Because a lot of it's crazy. Like I met someone this past week, potentially going to do business with. I was like, yeah, I was really excited for the call. I've been following you for years on LinkedIn. Never liked to post, never message. So you never know who's looking at the content. But yeah, what stood out is just getting off for a little bit was nice, and coming back more clear-minded of like, all right, where do I want to put my efforts as relates to posting and sharing insights and information that can be impactful to people in the audience. Shout out, worked with Golden State this past month. So out in San Francisco, the Bay Area, working at the Chase Center across their suites team, their premium team, their events team, and the Valkyries. We got to go to a Valkyries game one of the nights. That crowd was crazy. It was 20,000 people plus filling up the Chase Center. The environment, the vibe was great. Like it was really cool to see how one, women's sports is growing, but also what they've built there with the Valkyries. So shout out to them, and look to see that continue to grow as we continue to work with them, but then also just see the evolution. So in closing, RevOps, much needed role. Next week, I'll talk about, the type of people that move into those roles, or if it's good for a salesperson to switch over. But yeah, if this was something that was impactful to you, like it so it gets out to more people. Share this with someone in your network if you think this is something valuable for them. Subscribe so you get updated as I have new episodes every week. Took a couple weeks off for those of you that follow me for each of my episodes, and Mom definitely let me know that because I was traveling a little bit, not feeling well, so took a couple weeks off, but looking to get back into that weekly regular cadence. But like I say, every morning when I drop my girls off for school, go be awesome today. I'll be back
That's
next week with
nothing,
another video.
that's nothing. I'ma be doing this and I'm gonna be head hunting. Oh baby, don't know. Oh baby, don't go. Oh baby, don't know. Oh baby, don't go.